19. Year 3. Sanctum Spire. Ovette stared at herself in the mirror. Her golden mask glinted in the midday light, its sharp contours nothing like her own. She pulled it off and stared into the mirror, her white hair trussed into a tight bun that pulled at her scalp whenever she turned. Something the matter, miss? Clara sat behind Ovette, hands folded in her lap, waiting for instructions. It pained Ovette that even now, when they were alone, Clara clung to formality, as if being the gifted demanded distance. Ovette sighed, setting the mask aside before unfurling her hair, relief cresting through her scalp. No, Clara, nothing's the matter. She crossed her room and let herself fall onto her bed. I just don't like it. Clara stood and drifted to Ovette's side with practiced elegance, never too far away not to pick something up, to fetch, to obey. Her hands were clasped together, and she offered the faintest smile. I understand, miss, but the Lord Inquisitor is quite insistent. But I'm already the gifted. Why do I need to be something else? Clara sat beside her, gaze fixed ahead rather than meeting Ovette's. We can't always be who we want to be, miss. Sometimes we must be what others need us to be, even when we don't like it. Ovette rested herself on her elbows, studying Clara with newfound curiosity. She'd been her personal handmaiden ever since Ovette had arrived in Sanctum Spire. Early on in their relationship, she'd tried to learn more about Clara's past, her family, her home, but Clara had said such things didn't matter to her anymore. She owed her life to the Lord Inquisitor, and she would do all she could to serve him well. Over time, Ovette had stopped asking. She appreciated everything that Clara did for her. The handmaiden, ever present, ever ready to serve, but forever distant. The only time Clara didn't hover was during Ovette's studies, lessons spent mastering her gift, what it meant to be gifted, how she could work with the Lord Inquisitor to help people. He even insisted on teaching her how to defend herself with a sword. You may be the gifted, but drawing in and releasing gift takes time, the Lord Inquisitor had often said. Time your enemies can use against you. A truth she'd come to realize after a series of grueling sparring lessons. Trials that had left her bruised more often than not. Is that what you wanted to be, Clara? A handmaiden? Clara's cheeks flushed, her usually steady hands twitching before she pressed them tighter together. Serving the Lord Inquisitor and the gifted is more than someone like me could ever ask for. Yes, but this may not be what I dreamed of as a little girl, Clara interrupted, rising to fetch the golden mask. But it is who I needed to be. Who I needed to be? Ovette took the mask from Clara's outstretched hand, tracing unfamiliar ridges and contours. She didn't like the way the mask made her look like someone else. If she wore it, if she allowed herself to become the matriarch, what would happen to who she really was? What would happen to just Ovette? Come, Clara said with a softness that belied her years. The Lord Inquisitor is waiting for you. Year 5. Yundis. Ovette took off her mask and placed it in her lap. She jostled from side to side as her personal airship dipped through the cloud layer. Outside, the wind whooshed past, billowing the early morning air around them. Clara sat rigid, her eyes squeezed shut, fists clenched so tight her nails dug into her palms. Every jolt of the airship made her flinch. Ovette placed a hand on her knee and gave it a soft squeeze. She smiled as a red-faced Clara blinked back. Nothing to be afraid of, Ovette said, her tone soft and calm. Sorry, Clara stammered. Ovette chuckled, widening her smile as she took Clara's hand in her own. and there's certainly nothing to be sorry about. The airship steadied, the sound of the rushing wind fading into the steady hum of the airship's gift engine. Ovette kept hold of Clara's hand until the tension eased from her handmaiden's fingers. Beyond the viewport, the ringed city of Yundis sat atop an ocean of beautiful, endless blue. At its heart raged a maelstrom, violent, yet its swirling depths held an eerie calm. A gigantic chain, adorned with pulsing glyphs, speared through the storm. White buildings clustered in the shadow of Eunice's chain, some gleaming in the light reflected off the water's surface. Between them, colorful market banners flapped in the breeze. Ovette closed her eyes and imagined the hustle and bustle below, the merchants and patrons haggling over prices, the chatter and pleasant chaos of the streets. It had been too long since she'd walked the streets, too long since she'd engaged directly with the people of Eudos and truly listened to them. A beaming smile spread across her face. "The people will be pleased to hear of your arrival, matriarch," Clara said. Ovette turned to her handmaiden. "I've waited a long time for this. The chance to be among the people again, to join with Eunice's chain and serve them." Clara leaned over to peer out of the viewport, her face scrunched as the airship flew over a less affluent district, where the gleaming white towers gave way to buildings stained green and brown by seawater and neglect. "Here's hoping you'll be kept safe from harm this time," Clara muttered. "Rumors around about rebels within the city's walls." "I am perfectly capable of looking after myself," Ovette replied, though her gaze drifted to the figure seated across from her. A man, at least she thought him a man, clad in obsidian black armor, a golden spire embossed on his chest. Plus, I still have the hand here with me. She regarded the hand with warmth as she spoke. Clara shifted as her gaze flicked to Ovette's silent protector. "He unnerves me," she admitted. Ovette smiled in reply, passing her warmth to Clara. The terror she'd felt upon first meeting the hand seemed a lifetime ago, as if it had belonged to another person. Other than Clara, he had been one of the few constants she'd had in her life since Igni. His presence comforted her. There was something familiar about him, something she had never been able to put her finger on. Year 8. Yundis Citadel. "Thank you all for attending." The Lord Inquisitor addressed the crowd with open arms, his voice booming through the grand hall. "It fills my heart to see so many of Yundis's finest joining together to celebrate our blessed matriarch. May she guide us all." "May she guide us all." The crowd's echo tightened Ovette's throat. Years of study had never prepared her for public speaking. The social elite had filled the grand hall of Eunice's citadel, their embroidered ball gowns and embellished raiments shimmering among the sculptured marble. The powdered faces of each attendee stared up at her, each of them waiting to hear her wisdom. She brushed a hand over her simpler attire, a small rebellion that the Lord Inquisitor had allowed her, much to Clara's dismay. Yet even in plain fabric, she felt like a fraud. Her golden mask helped. It hid her wincing, her self-doubt. It kept her both faceless and nameless. To her people, she wasn't Ovette, just the matriarch, a moniker devised by the Lord Inquisitor to shield her from the rebels, from the past. She'd resisted at first, but she'd grown to understand the need for such secrecy. The Gyfted was a threat to the rebellion's vaunted ideals of freedom through violence. Yet, for all their barbarism, the heart of their cause was at least just, a better life for Udans. It seemed even a gang of thugs and murderers could hold noble intentions. Perhaps one day, a path to true unification would be possible. Matriarch. Clara's elbow nudged her ribs. Ovette blinked. The Lord Inquisitor had turned, his hand outstretched. The crowd behind him waited, silent, all eyes on her, on their matriarch. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, a reflexive smile tugging under her mask, unseen but steadying. She scanned the crowd, locking eyes with a merchant's wife, a councilman's son. She passed her gaze between as many as possible, recalling names when she could, connecting with them. My friends, she began, thank you for coming. Her stomach fluttered, but her voice remained strong. It warms my heart dearly to see so many come together for the good of all. Faces plastered with practiced smiles stared back. The elite of Eunice cared little for those beneath them, most choosing to ignore the outer districts. These people wouldn't lift a finger for anyone but themselves, not unless it lined their pockets. But Ovette kept her voice light. It is our duty to protect those less fortunate than us. As a child, I believed our Daven neighbors to be nothing more than oppressors, monsters who wished to steal us away. But I was wrong. She gestured to the Lord Inquisitor, who extended a deep bow in response. This man showed me the error of my ways, showed me that Udens and Davens were more alike than different. To him I owe my path, my very life. A prefect in parade-polished armor pushed through the balcony crowd and whispered something to the Lord Inquisitor. Ovette's skin prickled as her mentor's expression darkened. She turned back to the crowd. And to you, I give thanks for believing in me, for listening when it would have been easier to turn away. Your generosity gives me the strength I need to continue my work, for Udens and Davens alike. Her dress's hitchings pinched her ribs as she bowed, shallow but earnest nonetheless. Few here deserved gratitude, save for perhaps Lord Udican. He was the only attendee that she looked forward to speaking with. She finished her bow and scanned the crowd again, his apparent absence causing the flutter in her stomach to tremble. A couple weaving through the crowd caught her eye. The woman glided, parting nobles with a gentle hand and practiced grace. But the man, Ovette's breath caught. He was familiar, yet she couldn't put a finger on why. Perhaps it was the way he held himself, the slope of his shoulders, or the tension in his hand as he pushed people aside. Even in a tailored doublet, he looked like a wolf stalking its prey. Ovette chuckled to herself at the thought of another soul wishing they could be anywhere else but here. Her attention drew back into the room as a hand grasped her elbow and guided her away from the podium. The Lord Inquisitor stepped forward, staring directly at the same couple Ovette had been watching. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? We have a very special guest with us tonight. The man in his date froze in place. It is my deepest honor to formally introduce you all, a man of renowned tenacity. The man in question reached behind his back. I'm to escort you to the chain room, miss, Clara said, her fingers clasped tight over Ovette's wrist. What's going on? Ovette asked. She didn't hear Clara's reply. Her faithful handmaid's lips moved, but she heard only the words of the Lord Inquisitor and the name he'd just spoken aloud. Welcome, Chainbreaker.